you do this one thing, I guarantee you it's going to make a difference in your life. And when it comes to healing and doing the inner work, for me, in 2014, I tried to leave this place, and if it wasn't for Archangel Michael, I wouldn't be here. And I've been on a rigorous healing journey ever since. I've probably invested over $30,000 in myself, working with shamans and energy healers, plant medicine, all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that I've realized on my journey going from, down in the dumps wanting to leave this place to wherever the heck I am now with just some much happier place, let's just say. The biggest thing that you can do to transform your life right now in this very moment is stop beating yourself up. Sit down with yourself, take a hard look at all the aspects of you that you don't like, all the things that you see that make you want to beat yourself up and feel bad. You see, feeling bad's actually a really great thing if you're on a healing journey. All you got to do is pay attention to your emotions. The next time you're feeling down in the dumps, pay attention to the thoughts you're having and ask yourself, why did they create these emotions? And 9 times out of 10, it comes from beating ourselves up. If you can learn to stop beating yourself up, that's the biggest single tip there is to healing and living a much more satisfying, happy, fulfilled life. Because if you achieve everything that you set out to achieve and you're still beating yourself up, you haven't really found true happiness. So sit down with yourself, ask yourself, what are the aspects of me that I don't like? And learn to be friends with them, learn to make peace with them, learn to be more compassionate with those aspects of you. In 2013, I lost my mom to cancer, and 13 months later, after having this sudden spiritual awakening and evaluating who I became, I was like, I had this temper problem. I was an alcoholic for around 15 years. And I evaluated my life, and I seen all this sadness and pain from my childhood, all this unhealed childhood trauma. And I was just like, well, healing's impossible, and I can't live another 30 or 40 years feeling this way. And that's when I tried to exit this place. And when Archangel Michael showed me that was no longer an option, I had nothing left to do except heal, despite feeling that it was impossible. And one of the things, looking back on my healing journey, that I did that made things worse, that delayed healing, was beating myself up. Once you identify something about yourself, for instance, for me, I was like, okay, I have this, in my 20s, I had this Jetwick temper. And I was like, well, you can't really just get rid of that, right? That was before I learned to meditate. But I was like, okay, I hate this aspect of myself. If someone insulted me, I'd have no problem getting up in their face, and it was like getting revenge was the only thing I could think of, and my body'd be shaking, and sometimes I like to do that a little bit. But when you sit down with the aspects of yourself that you're not too happy with, and you're like, okay, well, why am I this way? And for me, it was like, okay, well, I got a temper problem because of the shit I was put through growing up, being bullied in school. And I was like, okay, well, you know what? At the time that I had this sudden spiritual awakening, I was like, okay, well, I hate this aspect of me. But then I sat down with it and I evaluated where this came from. And I was like, okay, well, wait a second. It's kind of justified. I had a lot to be angry about, and I was picked on and made fun of for most of my life. And once I became more compassionate towards that aspect of myself, well, meditation is what got rid of that. But I was able to stop beating myself up for having that aspect of me once I learned to become more compassionate and loving towards it. In 2020, I met my twin, and she was accustomed to a whole different lifestyle than I was, and things didn't work out. And one of the things I thought of was, my lifestyle's not what she's accustomed to. There was a zillion things, but my brain went to this one particular thing, and I started thinking about, why did I waste all of my 20s just making my priorities going to the bar and getting drunk instead of, creating a business or doing something that would have made me successful. And I really beat myself up for a long time about this. But it wasn't until I was like, well, you know what? had a lot of unhealed childhood trauma I had to drown out, and hitting the bottle seemed like the only fix at the time. So, just whatever it is about you, just fucking sit down with it and ask yourself why it's there and know that it's a part of you and learn to love it. Be more compassionate towards it and just watch that resentment, that heaviness, that denseness just kind of fade away. Stop beating yourself up. It only makes your life worse. It only delays healing. It's the number one tip I have if you're on a healing journey. Don't beat yourself up. One of the things when I look back to 2013 when my mom passed away from cancer 3 months before my son was born, I was so depressed that at times it would take me over an hour just to muster up the energy to get out of my chair. And being in this depressed state, I beat myself up for feeling that way. I'm like, well, I'm supposed to be happy. So now going through all this depression, I was also beating myself on top of that for feeling that way, which only delayed things instead of looking at like, okay, well, why are we depressed? Oh, it's because we realized that we spent over a decade drowning out our childhood trauma, drinking booze and partying. And, I had all these unresolved issues with my mom that, were never able to get resolved after she passed away. And just sit down with whatever it is that's bothering you. Instead of beating yourself up, learn to be more compassionate towards yourself. I guarantee you the worst thing you can do on your healing journey is beat yourself up, just in life in general. Whatever aspects you don't like about yourself, learn to love them and watch your life change for the better.